down and out with the San Jose Sharks. We're continuing our series that we've had for the last couple weeks with the non-playoff teams, taking a look at a number of different clubs throughout this stretch and what's gone wrong this season. Not only that, but what is the path forward for the San Jose Sharks? And this, to me, when I look at it, it's really such a pivotal offseason for the Sharks franchise because, yes, there's a change in regime with Doug Wilson stepping down as their general manager after a 2-decade run that was filled with tons of success, although they never got over the hump to the ultimate prize. But you take a look at that triumvirate of really tenured defensemen that they have on their blue line, including Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, and Marc-Edouard Vlasic. And I look at that and I say, man, this is a lot of money to spend on 3 guys on your blue line, all of whom are getting up there in years. But you look at the season that Burns has had, actually a bit of a bounce back year. He's been pretty good. When Erik Karlsson was healthy, he was fine. But I take a look at Marc-Edouard Vlasic and I say, man, for someone whose minutes have fallen off a cliff, he's now down to 15 minutes a night. Looks to me like when you take a look at Vlasic, he's a prime buyout candidate for this summer. I think the big question with the Sharks and where they move forward is who is their next general manager? We don't know who that's going to be yet. The process really hasn't begun to ramp up in earnest. The Sharks have been pronounced in their statement in saying we're willing to wait as long as it takes to get the guy that we want to run this franchise, even if that means waiting deep in the playoffs or potentially until after the season is over to get the guy that they want. Their process, I think it's going to probably include 12 to 14 names when it's all said and done that they work through and ultimately end up interviewing. So we expect that process to really get underway here in the next days and weeks, especially after the regular season ends. Tyler has jumped back in and joined us here. But I'm curious to see who that GM ends up being, Tyler, because in this case, they're going to obviously chart a new course forward for the Sharks, but I also wonder how their view of the franchise and how things move forward meshes with their owner and Hasso Plattner, someone who's a bit hands-off, but the expectation, Tyler, is behind the scenes that Plattner is not necessarily someone that believes in a tear-it-down rebuild. He'd like the team to remain competitive as much as they can as they try and retool here. But I would argue that given some of the contracts, given the vets that they have, that you take a look at these last 3 seasons and you say all sort of in the NHL's no man's land, not in the lottery territory, also far enough away from the playoffs that probably more drastic measures need to be taken in order to reshape this group for the future.
So I think there could be a debate on what people think the Sharks should do, but if you had to place a bet, and I guess it does kind of depend on who they hire as the GM, but will this be a summer filled with buyouts and trading of veterans and kind of trying to flip it, or are they just going to move around the edges a little and try to complement the group they already have?
Well, they need more support pieces, number one. They need more difference makers, number two. But one of the things I mentioned while you were offline was Vlasic, to me, is the guy that I have circled as a buyout candidate. His minutes, he's down to 15-12 a night. That's a lot of money to spend on a guy that turns 35 over the summer. That clearly isn't part of your plans necessarily now or moving forward. So I think it probably starts with him, and then we'll see where it goes from there.